Hi, it's Tony at Camp K9, and I thought I might share with you my tomato blight story. And this is my own log as well, for my own reference, because I might forget that this happened to me. But this year was a very wet year, and despite the amount of pruning that I did on my tomatoes and training, I didn't avoid it, and blight hit my tomatoes. And I had planted about 100 plants, 100 plants, and they succumbed to the most horrific black blight. Now this is dried up a bit now, so it just looks like dry leaves. I've left this one in the garden as a reminder to myself. This is a plant that pretty much was taken completely by blight, as you can see. Now, the thing is I went into sort of like panic mode of, oh my god, what do I do? I've got blight. I can't let it spread. It's going to spread. It's going to spread in the wind. It's going to spread in the damp air. It's going to spread across all my tomato plants, and I've got a load of them planted. So how am I going to avoid this? So I started by trimming off all of the branches that had blight in them. It's really bright here. I might have to just move whilst I talk to you. So I started by removing all of the branches that had blight on them, and that didn't seem to work. I thought it held it at bay, but then it just continued to spread. Now I don't know whether that was because my hands were contaminated, the tools that I was using were contaminated, and whether they spread around the garden and I was spreading it as fast as the moisture was. I have no idea. And I began to just lose complete and utter hope. I thought that my favourite tomatoes that I had planted were protected, and then they came down with it as well, and I basically just cried. I absolutely cried as fast as I was ripping out the plants and cutting off the branches, it was just spreading through my entire crop of tomatoes. So I ended up, I was just ripping them out. And I got left with a handful of tomato plants left in my garden that I thought, well, they've got tomatoes on them. The blight hasn't quite reached the tomatoes yet. If they can grow just a bit bigger, then I can take them off, put them with the rest of the green tomatoes. Because as I was ripping out the plants, I was pulling off the green tomatoes where they were big enough and putting them indoors to ripen up. So a few of the plants I decided that I would leave in. A couple of the plants did not look as if they had been affected by the blight, and then I saw it start on them, and I was just like, do you know what? I've lost the will to live now. I'm not in a rush to pull out these plants. It's not going to travel any further than it has already. It's got brown pretty much everywhere. I'm going to lose the lot. So I just let them be, and I thought I'll just go out and I'll just harvest the tomatoes that I can save when they are big enough before I have to rip out the plants. Well, so as I was doing that, I then sort of, like as you do, put a post on Facebook saying, what do I do? I've got blight. How's anyone cope with this? I had messages being sent saying, or replies to my threads telling me that I'll never be able to plant in that earth again, that I won't be able to plant in the earth for another 3 years. And then I thought, well, hold on a second. You know, Facebook is Facebook. So let's go directly to someone that I trust and ask him what I can do about this. So, and if it was true, whether I wouldn't be able to plant in the earth again. And I got a wonderful message back, which relieved me like crazy, that told me that blight does not live in the earth. only lives on the plant, and I'm absolutely fine. I used the no-dig method here. I wanted to know whether I needed to dig up the roots, which I would normally have left in the ground to rot away. I was told no, I can just cut off the plants when I'm ready and leave the roots as normal to rot away, to decompose in the soil and add to the nutrients. That's all really good news. Schultz, excuse me, just one moment. Sorry about that. I have a guest dog, and although he's been very good with the chickens, he did just get a little bit excited that he was in actually the vicinity of a loose one. Anyway, so oh, rubbish. Where have I got to? The no-dig method, not needing to rip up the roots and all of that. So then I started thinking, well, let me have another ask around. So I was jotting it down in the odd different groups, and someone came back and said that yeah, blight's a real pain. They just cut off the branches that are affected, and they leave the plant to continue to grow where and how it can. So I was thinking, oh, I didn't realize that it wouldn't spread down every branch, because what I was witnessing was every branch would start off at maybe a joint, an elbow, and it would or just sometimes even mid branch, you'd get this little bit of blackness show, and then it would start to spread, and it would spread and spread and spread and spread and spread, and it would go up the branches. I'm just trying to think if I've got one I can show you. So I have a plant here, and it doesn't look so bad now that the weather's dried out and it's not this fungal infection that is spreading throughout the plant. When the weather dried, it dried up the fungus, and it stopped spreading, and then it just went to like a dead woody color. So if you can see here, you can see that this plant, it would have started sort of like around this area here. It would have spread up the plant up here, and it would have spread down the plant here. It would have gone up these branches here and here, and it would have killed off the tomatoes that were growing here. And then the dry weather hit and the heat hit, and it killed the fungus off in one go. This growth up here is looking pretty good. I've got new flowers growing on the end of here. I have green growth here on this plant, actually past it. So you can see the green here, then you can see the blight, then you can see the green. You can see a tiny touch of blight there. All of this is healthy, and there's a nice tomato growing right here. So, and this plant got blight halfway up the first bit of it. And this one here as well, it hit there. So now I'm feeling like I ripped out a ton of tomato plants I didn't need to rip out of. But it's what you learn, isn't it? Every single year you learn something new. So in this boat, I had a ton of tomato plants. The ones down here at this end, I have to say, they were a small growing tomato plant. I have no idea what species they were. They were seeds that I just found that I had, so I planted them. And they pretty much had it. Up this end, I had a lot of Amish paste, which I was growing for the first time ever, and I had about 5 plants here, and I ripped all of them out and I just left the one. I think in future, if that happened, I might actually, well, I might just shrink the plants down or something, I don't know, or maybe I'll just leave them and see what happens, because this plant has come back. This plant had the blight here and here, and again up here you can see some of these. This plant wasn't doing too badly, so this is why I left it in. I thought it was going to spread. It's got bits here that got the blight, it's got some bits here, anywhere where you can see the brown leaves. But can you notice the green? Here's green here, here's green here. Here's brand new tomatoes growing, and here's amongst these brown leaves I've got a lovely tomato growing. Tomato here. Now this tomato may get actually taken by the blight because it's looking a little bit weak and it's looking a little bit dry. But these tomatoes up here, in fact they look like two different makes of tomato, but these tomatoes up here, these ones here, they're looking extremely promising. And the plant's growing out there, and I've got fresh flowers on that side. This plant is showing amazing recovery from what I thought was going to be a disease that was going to kill it. I am so impressed. So, of all my Amish paste, I've got one plant left. I will have some tomatoes out of there. And the one that I looked at over there was the heart paste, and I will have some. I'm not going to lose the entire lot. These mysterious ones, gone, finished. These here were my tiger ones, and I had again about 5 plants here, and I ripped them all out, all apart from one. Well, I have harvested some, and just look here, look here. These bits here are dead. I'll come out and I think I'll do some pruning, and I'll prune off all these dead bits. But look at this, new growth, strong growth, flowers. This is the reason why they have their shoots that come off. You know, the bits we trim off, they're there for a reason. They are there to help the plant recover from things like this. Here's an example. I'll show you another example. These were my beefsteak tomatoes. Can't remember, there was one mysterious one I planted in there, but basically I had 5 beefsteak tomatoes in here, and I cut them all off. And I cut them off right down at the bottom. See, right here. Here is where I cut this one off. But it's sprung out. It's come out. It's got fresh flowers. It's got fresh growth. It's a new plant growing. I didn't plant that. I mean, I planted the original plant. This is the plant recovering from blight. I'm absolutely amazed. Okay, now the blight hardly hit these purple tomatoes. These are the first time I'm growing these. It hardly hit it. I thought that I was going to get away without it hitting this plant, and then all of a sudden I saw the blight hit here. But I mean, how good is this? I've got tomatoes ripening all over the place. Here, look at this. Beautiful, beautiful ripe tomatoes. Those ones are ready to pick. Look at these beautiful purple tomatoes. Now they do ripen to sort of like a terracotta-y colour, but aren't they just beautiful? This is all fresh growth. The purple definitely coped better with the blight, or maybe it was the protection of this corner. But here, look at this. This is a stem that was completely hit by blight. There. Can you see that, where it broke? Okay, here are the tomatoes that got killed by the blight. The stem comes down here, falls down here. I gave up on this plant. Look at it. Look at the growth. Look at the tomatoes. This is amazing. This is really amazing. I am so incredibly impressed with nature. I'm just going to add them to my bucket. These are tomatoes that I've harvested today. This is another one, the yellow one, the yellow cherry. And you can see here, this stem here, hit by blight. Okay, these ones aren't going to make it. You can see they're beginning to dry up already. That branch totally and utterly taken by the blight. But these yellow cherry tomatoes are absolutely going for it. That one touched the blight on the branch. That one's got the blight affecting it. But this here this branch that has fallen down, which I gave up on. Look at that. Look at those new tomatoes I'm going to have. It's crazy. It's crazy that I thought that I lost all my tomatoes to blight, and I was convinced that I had. And yet I've got all these tomatoes here. The mini chocolate tomatoes. Now I've harvested most of these today. These plants barely got touched by blight. You can see just a tiny bit there that got caught on that branch there. But mainly, I mean, you can see the odd little branch that got caught by it. But mainly, the chocolate tomatoes survived. Unfortunately, I don't much care for the taste. But they'll do good in a sauce or something. These were my white tomatoes. These were my pride and joy. I thought I had bought the tiny cherry white tomatoes that I had last year, which were in abundance and tasted absolutely amazing. Well, somehow I got it wrong. They are white, or what you call white. They're not terribly white. They're more sort of like a yellowy, off yellowy white colour. But these plants looked like they had been taken by the blight, and there was no way I was going to get anything off of them. And you can see in some cases, again, the plants are collapsing. The blight damaged stalks are collapsing. The plant hasn't grown very tall. It's fallen back on itself. Now I might come out and actually start pinning that back up the stakes again. I don't know, because the blight makes the stems quite brittle, and I don't want to kill the plant. I might just let it do what it wants to do and let it be a vine and let it just continue on. I mean, if it touches the ground and it sends out some roots, and that makes for a stronger tomato plant, and I end up getting more tomato plants from it, then brilliant, because I thought I'd lost all the tomatoes. So I didn't lose all of my tomatoes, and I am about to go round and pick some more and see what I can harvest. I can say one thing though. This is my first year of growing tomatillos. Tomatillos? Say that? Tomatillos? I can't remember. Anyway, I have been harvesting them. I have been trying them. They are an acquired taste. The way I would describe them, sorry, we have got a buzzard flying up there. I don't know if you can hear it calling in the background. Hopefully it's not after my chickens. That's what you can hear, that in the background. That's the buzzard. Anyway, yeah, acquired taste. The tomatillos, acquired taste. The first bite tastes like sick in your mouth, and I'm not kidding you. Or tastes like my sick in my mouth anyway. But once you get over that, and yeah, you're gonna have to get over that. You then are left with like this sort of, you then hit this sort of like tomatoey taste, and then you're left with sort of like this sweet, fruity taste, berry maybe taste in your mouth. So it's not all bad. It's up to you whether you want to just get past the first taste that hits your mouth first. Anyway, so tomatillos, by the way, not affected by blight in the slightest. It did not touch one part of the plant. And the same goes for the ground cherries. The ground cherries, I just assumed because they were all sort of like part of the tomato varieties, species, that they would be hit by it. But no, they weren't. Right, I am going to go and harvest some tomatoes. So I will see you all later. I am really pleased to say that the blight did not take all of my tomatoes, and not only have I got tomatoes to harvest, I have got new flowers, new tomatoes, new flowers on my plants, and more coming. It's I'm not as upset as I thought I would be. I have got tomatoes. I have got at least one of pretty much every variety that I planted this year, so I will get to taste them all. So there you go. If you've got blight in your tomatoes, don't think everything is all over, because it's not. Now, I suppose if we had had a continuously wet summer, if we hadn't had that real strong heat that we had, that dried, I'm guessing dried and killed off the blight, if we'd had an intermittent wet moggy summer, then maybe the blight would have stayed around, maybe it would have taken all of them. But we can never tell the forecast, can we? We're hopeless at that. We have no idea what's coming around the corner. The endless rain in June was followed by a heat blast in August, and tomatoes. So keep with it, stick with it, have faith. As many a gardener, wise gardener, would say, the plants do want to survive. They want to thrive. They want to throw their seed. They don't want to be taken by disease. They'll have a coping mechanism. And maybe we are actually pruning off their coping mechanism. Maybe we shouldn't be taking those suckers off. Or maybe we should just be leaving the odd sucker. Anyway, I'll leave that thought with you. Take care, and we'll see you again at Camp Canine, in the garden, in the doggy daycare, or in the chicken and the goat yard. One or the other, maybe even the kitchen, who knows? But until then, take care.